All right, so I sent you the picture of the position that is kind of the problem position, but we'll run through all these and kind of compare them and talk about why you get into that position. So we'll start with the in-game one. We'll let it run, and then we'll step by step. So obviously, you told me and Matt told me you're mid 80s, you've been low 90s. There's something behind your ball. It's not like there's nothing there. All right. So questions are, why is the UCL compromised, and is there more in the tank? Answer to the more in the tank, yeah. Pretty much cleaning these things up will be, you will be, instead of touching low 90s, you'll be sitting up there. All right. Um, there is, ironically, there's some things that I saw in Matt that are comparable to you. All right. So we'll go through this one. All right. So really the biggest positions you look for, or the checkpoints of the delivery, are out of leg lift. We look for a hinge. Basically, does your hip level drop, and do you move forward during that drop? You're fine with that. Then we go to landing, when your front foot accepts weight. All right. And then we look at everything in comparison. So let's go to that frame in this. All right. And to the untrained eye, your heel might be touching here, and then your foot's on the ground here, but your leg hasn't accepted any weight. So then watch this next frame, your knee will move to the right. Okay. Because that knee move means there's no weight on it. Now this next frame, it accepts weight. Okay. And the let's say issue in this, or the timing aspect of it, I can already see your chest. Like if I could look at your Nike logo or whatever you had on your left pec, I shouldn't see that until the frame after your foot accepts weight. That's where everybody talks about hip shoulder separation and all that stuff. So pretty much your shoulders here with your front foot on the ground and accepting weight is going to be pretty much the ideal position. But you're moving in a throw, you're moving so fast you can't simply control that. Everything up to that has to be in line for it to happen. All right. So the chest is already stretched. The leg just accepted weight. You'll see the hip kick back. All right. And then the chest is now being stretched. We'll keep going forward. All right. And that's about the majority of what we can see from that angle. Pretty much when we're videoing mechanics, you want to be able to see all the axes. So you have a y-axis, you have an x-axis, and you have a z. This video right here is, I can see y up and down, and I can see x perfectly. The front video is z, I can see left and right. So as we move forward, when we're taking video, we'll either go directly behind, directly in front, or from the side. Whenever you start going 45 degrees and everything, all the measurements get skewed. So now let's go to this side one, and then we'll jump to the third side one. All right. And one of the things, you mentioned it, and then, like I said, you might be comparable to Matt in this situation. Your front foot is turned in. The set position is all about being comfortable. All right. So that might be an indicator that you are internally rotated in the hips. All right. as you pick up. So what we're looking for, what I'm talking about with the hinge. So I would mark it. Where's my annotate bar? There we go. The line. Better color. All right. So we got, this is your hip line. And then as we move forward, I need you to go down and forward at the same time. Basically, the slope of the mound, you need to move down it. And that's where a lot of guys, where you say the mound beats you up, or like guys are really good flat ground, but then they get on the mound, they suck, things like that. It comes from this move right here. All right. So if I were to put a probe, like if we were in a biomechanics lab, I'd put a probe on your belly button and one on each hip, and then I would measure the positions of that. So it's not hard to see that you are fine in your hinge. All right, your hip level is here now. That will clean up the fact that your hips are pointed up. We don't want that, but again, a lot of this stuff will clean up simply from finding out your bone structure and your anatomy. So what those things are very big in the way you move. Everybody is built differently, and that's why everybody moves differently. But you can see you started here and we moved down and forward here. So hinge is good. Clear. Why can't I clear? Clear all draw. There we go. All right. So hinge is good. Let's move it back. All right. Another thing we look at is going to be this knee in relationship to landing. All right. All right. And honestly, your timing of it is pretty good. I'm looking to be knee and shoelaces down right around when the front foot accepts weight. So your timing of it isn't bad. But again, this is what we're going to start to get into the problem that I see. And everything starts from the ground up. So like if you had somebody look at you and they'd point out your elbow. Oh, your elbow shoots in front of your ear. Yeah, but the reason it does that is from your leg patterns. So let's look at, and again, if we had probes, I'd be putting it pretty much on your pocket. And this is one thing that we found in Matt, that it's tough to see on this, but I'm looking at your pocket. And when does your pocket stop? All right. Obviously, your hips have to rotate, but if they're still rotating while the arm is breaking down, the chain is not in the most optimal position, and that's why there's a break in your elbow. That's why there's more stress in your elbow than there should be. All right, the links of the chain down further take the stress of the broken link that happened before. So we want the arm to be laying back as the hips are stable and decelerating. So foot's on the ground. That this position in your arm is what we want. We want a 90 here. All right, and that allows it to be stable basically. As this forearm is straight up and down, it defies gravity. The ball is weightless. And then if we properly rotate and accelerate forward, this falls down almost like it's weightless. And then that's why it accelerates so fast in proper sequencing. So with your pocket, we're looking right here. It's rotating. It rotates a little bit more. and then there's a shoot. So there's a tiny little bit of rotation after this frame, and then that knee kicks up. So what that tells you is your bottom half is not done, but you're already throwing the ball. All right, so your sequence is off. So what does that cause? All right, obviously that's the issue. We need to figure out why that happens, but then what is that causing? So when we look at what we want to have happen here is, let's get a circle. We want, so if the ball is right there, as you start, what we want to see is the ball fall pretty much straight down. And obviously you're moving towards the plate, so it's going to go forward a little bit. We want the ball to fall down roughly here. And what that does is it puts the chest in stretch, and it puts the arm, the scap in a retracted position, and everything is really close to the spine and it's stable. All right. The fact that you are pulling, so this big, like I mentioned earlier, this big shoot up of your elbow is a indicator of a lot of stress coming. So you got to think of how things move. All right, you're in a, if I'm looking at pictures, hey, that's not too bad. Your shoulder might be a little bit open, but that's not too bad, right? Next frame, still not that bad. The arm is still back here and your chest is driving forward. The head tilt and a little bit of lean tells me you're not rotating as efficiently as possible. But then this next frame, pretty much what you got to think of, and this is where most of the stress happens. All right, I'm roughly like this, and then how do I get my elbow to my ear without anything else moving? I got to use my chest, okay? And all of that runs through here. And that's where the UCL is tense. I'm tying into this area of my arm, and I'm moving as fast as I can. This is stretched, and then it goes. Okay, all of these muscles are pulling on the forearm, and that crosses the UCL is what that does. It takes the humerus, your bicep area, your bone, the bones there, connects it to your chest muscles, and connects it to your forearm. All right, so this shooting motion forward is really where all the stress comes about. And then because that is an inefficient sequence, we then see more exposure of the stress. So first indicator that you won't, if you saw the, like I said, I pointed that out, but if you just look at pictures, you're not going to be like, all right, that's a terrible position. But it is, because it comes from this, and then that, it's a position we don't want to be in. All right. So a big thing with proper sequencing is your release point. You're releasing the ball just after this frame. So if I'm drawing a straight line down, you're on your heel. So if you're releasing the ball in the next frame, you're going to be roughly here with release point, or maybe here. So if I draw it straight down, you're still in your foot. All right. Matt will tell you, and I'll show you other videos. If you're sequenced properly and you throw gas, you are out front of your front foot. That's just how it works. The body rotates, but it also linearly catapults, and your torso has to get out over your front knee, and then the arm has to whip through. And I haven't found anybody yet that can safely throw high velocities with a release point on their foot. It has to be out front. You might find it in a guy that's really sidearm, but even then, you're the further you tick out, the more time your arm has to accelerate, and the more stability your body is providing it, and that's where the safe velocity comes from. So let's clear this. And then this is another thing that I saw in Matt that caused it's kind of where the nerve starts to blow up. So in this position, your thumb is down, right? This next position, your arm, your thumb is still down, right? And still down, and it starts to roll there. All right. What happens as we start to, as the arm, as we release the ball and our arm extends out, it's reaching its max velocity. And the way we're built is the way to decelerate any of your joints, you roll it, you rotate it. All right. You're releasing it so far back that it's rotating back here. And then because there's still slack in it, it's going to shoot out. And if you were to turn your thumb down and stick your arm out as far as you could, your fingers would start to tingle. And that's one of the things we found in Matt, like, hey, your deceleration process is off. And that's, your arm is moving so fast that whenever that impact hits and that thumb is down and that happens, it's like somebody's taking a hammer and smashing the nerve. So after this next frame, you would want to see the hand start to roll, and yours really doesn't. All right. So again, everything works from the ground up. These are just products of that are indicators of what's going on, and they will be fixed as we focus on and figure out what the mechanics need to exactly look like. All right. And that your finish position also is something that makes me think you are a internally dominant guy, is because you're extremely separated in this position, but you're incredibly stable. Like you handle that position no problem. You're deep into that left hip, no problem, but the ball's already gone. So if I go back here and look at your when does the hip catch? It's right there. It's kind of right there, but then it's it never really stops. Like it doesn't look like it's in the position that it wants to be in. And that's what we found with Matt. It's just, hey, dude, you are so internally rotated that like you have to almost be facing first base when you throw. It was wild. So let's go to this one just as another example. Again, these angles would be slightly skewed because you're probably, let's say, roughly 30 degrees in front of your perpendicular line. Again, the hinge is good. I like your pace. You have good pace towards the plate. The front arm extension is good. All right, not everybody does that, but majority of guys do that. And it's important for sequencing. Okay, so when does the front leg accept weight? You're touching the ground, but there's no weight on it. There's weight in it there. But then you see that slip in the foot, that means it's still catching weight. All right, so it caught weight. This next frame, it is done. All right, but look where you're at. You're already here. And if you were to get into this position statically without moving, I can feel kind of a little bit of not pinch, but like a stretch through this, and that at high velocities, it's amplified that much more. All right. You don't, very rarely do guys need to lean that far left. And it can be an indicator of you're not rotating properly because of all the things we're talking about. Is it the hip anatomy and things of those nature? And because your hip hinge is good and your knee stays back pretty well, that was another thing that kind of fooled me with Matt. And how I got to it was, I said, when I broke down his video, I said, this knee needs to stay here. And then he came back to me and was like, yeah, I know, I'm trying to do that. And then I'm like, okay, if you're trying to do that, you move very well, but you still can't do it. There's got to be a reason why. And then I'll get into the measurements I need to take, but we did the one measurement and I was like, yo, we did it real quick. And I was like, all right, we need to do that again, because I just got a really weird measurement. And then we did it again. And I'm like, okay, your knees need to be together. And him trying to keep that knee back was the exact opposite of what he needed. And it just screwed the whole sequence up. And like I said, it was like a hammer being slammed on his elbow every time he released, because the body wasn't in proper position. All right. One thing you'll see here that I don't really notice in this video, but it's a little bit more pronounced in this one. Watch your elbow climb. So here, and then we'll go next frame. So now you're here. So that climbing of the elbow, you're fighting gravity. Okay. When you're fighting gravity, there's no option but stress. So obviously it comes from this lean, but as if my arm's back like this and I'm pushing it up, it's going to slow down. And obviously, if you want to throw hard, that's not what we want to do. All right. So let's go back. Let's finish this. All right. And then again, release point. If we're drawing a straight line down, you're probably going to release it roughly here. And again, that's over your front foot when we want to be out in front of that foot. Even guys that lean hard and throw really far over the top, they're still out in front of their front foot. They're just not as far. But releasing over your front foot is leaving a lot on the table. And then, yeah, your thumb, you're turned up like that. And then watch, it's still down. The thumb is still down and the arm locked straight. As you rotate, as this arm internally rotates and pronates, it needs to be bent. It's ideally, it's like 160 degrees, 165-ish, because the bones aren't locked out, and that creates more friction. But if it's slightly bent and it rotates, it's better. But then this is one thing I saw on Matt as well. Next frame, bam, thumb down, locked out. I'm compromising the nerve and all the soft tissue at the joint. And then it still rotates because it has to, but it does it late. And that's where the issues are happening, or the damage is happening. The issues are everything up to it, and then the damage is being occurred there. So the cool part about this is you've already had, obviously you're injured right now, and but you've had velocity success and you've been in games. So it's, the cool thing is there's more on the table. So what I'm gonna look at again here is, when does your hips stop rotating? Like even there, next frame, they're rotating again. The ball is gone. And I know you're decelerating, but it still shows me that they want to be in an internally rotated state. Another question I would ask you is, do you push with your back leg? As in, if you were to do a lateral bound. All right, now we'll start to get into the exercises and tests we're going to do. So the question I would have, am I going to push this way with your foot, or am I going to rotate my back leg? And it looks like you extend it, triple extend it, which is not what we want. What happens is your momentum carries you so far forward and so fast forward that the leg does extend. But what we want is rotation. We want to rotate the leg down, which unlocks the tension of the back hip, allows the pelvis to rotate into the front hip, and then it's the initial rotation of the whole sequence. And ideally, so as your back leg internally rotates, your arm, the throwing arm externally rotates. It flips up. And if those things are in perfect sequence, you're on the right track. So right here, you're not far off, but you go from here, and then there's an extension there. And then that knee does it. Those shoelaces don't go freely down. And what I think causes that is you are pushing forward towards the plate. So, and because if I'm looking at this back foot and this back knee and it kicking up, there's not a rotational force acting upon your legs into landing. So again, that's why the hips are going to be off time. So, all right, that's pretty much everything for those. So now what I need you to do is send me a couple videos so that I can take measurements and get a clear picture on why these movements and positions are happening in your mechanics. This one is the test that I mentioned with Matt that I was like, what the fuck? Let's do this again because that's not normal. So what this test is basically checking is, do you like your feet outside your knee or inside your knee? Are you duck footed, or are you what's the other one where your feet turn out? Maybe that's duck footed. Anyway, so what you do in this test, lay on the ground, bend your both knees, and what you want to do, I put my hands on my hips so that you can't really do it on this one, but the next one you can. You don't want your hips to turn at all because it skews the measurement. All right, all you're gonna do is drop your feet out. All right, so me, I'm very neutral. I have roughly 35 degrees in each direction. Matt, when he did this, his feet were like out here. He had like 60, 70 degrees of internal rotation. And that's why all these issues were popping up. The chain was broken because he was trying to force this hip anatomy. So again, same thing, you're laying, but this time one leg stays straight and one leg comes up, and then you'll drop it in. All right, and again, this one's important. Hold your hip there. If the hip starts to peel up, you're skewing the measurement. So pretty much what this measurement or this, yeah, what this measurement does, do you like your knee outside of your foot? Again, I am neutral. I'm roughly 30 to 40 degrees in each direction. This one, Matt's legs were Matt's foot was probably about here. He didn't have much of any external rotation, and he was trying to force that in his delivery. And again, that's why things started to explode. These are going to be the most important ones. So we'll start with these. And then I'm going to email you basically instructions to what to do and everything and links to these videos. But we'll start with these measurements, and then after I get those, I might ask you to do some more things like this where you're standing. If the hip test comes back and it's not definitive that you're internal, I really don't think you're external because of what's going on. Like, you keep your knee back pretty well, so I don't think that's what's you. But all these other things, this is another one that can help us figure out what exactly is going on. I asked Matt to do this, and his knees hit and quick. So just different types of movements allow me to see what exactly you are comfortable with and what fits for you. So pretty much, no reason I asked for your email. I will send you a PDF document that has links attached to it and instructions. Do this, videotape it, send it back to me. And then from there, I will be able to formulate kind of a plan on what exactly we need to do. So if you have any questions, text me, and then you'll hear from me. Yeah, I'll send you that tomorrow sometime. So